Healing in Tarkov can be easily misunderstood. There's a lot of players that even though they know how to heal in the game, they don't really know the optimal way of keeping yourself in the fight. And because of that, I want to show y'all the most efficient and effective way that you can keep your character healed up and ready for anything that Tarkov can throw at you. My name is Hershey, and before we get into the video, I would just like to ask y'all to leave a like on this video if you do find it helpful, and consider subscribing to the channel. Currently only 2.5% of those watching my videos are subscribed, but if you're one of the returning viewers that keeps watching my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Alright, let's get into it. So there's going to be 6 steps in total in the order of healing. Step number 1 is going to be taking care of any heavy bleeds you may have. Once you've taken care of any heavy bleeds your character has, we're going to move on and take care of any light bleeds. Now that all of our bleeds are gone, the third step is going to be taking care of fractures. Once we've removed any fractures our PMC has, we're going to fully heal up our chest and our head. The reason for this is because if our chest or head hits 0, our character will die. We're going to make sure this is topped off before we continue, just in case we do get in an engagement before we can do anything else. Now that our chest and head is topped off, the next step is performing any surgeries that our character needs. And lastly, we're going to heal the rest of our body. This is the process we're going to follow when we know that there is no active threat in our vicinity. Now when it comes to care under fire, which is what I like to call it, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the video. So a quick overview of the items we're going to be using. We have our stimulants up here. This is typically what you'll be using in combat. Just below that we have all of our healing items, specifically for restoring health points. We have our bandages, which is going to be used for light bleeds, our tourniquets, which is going to be used for heavy bleeds, splints for any fractures, our CMS and Serve 12, so our surgery kits, just in case we get a black limb, and here at the very bottom we have all of our painkillers. Early wipe, most players are going to be using a cheese, bandage, Esmarch, and Analgan painkillers. Mid wipe, most people will be using a mixture of these meds with a army bandage, hemostat, possibly an aluminum splint, and a CMS, and whatever their choice of painkiller is. And then me personally, late wipe, I'm typically running a Grizzly with a Propitol, CMS or Serve 12, and ibuprofen. Now that that's taken care of, let's go ahead and talk about the first step in the order of healing. So when it comes to healing, the first thing you actually want to use is going to be a tourniquet. You want to take care of heavy bleeds first. I have my lovely assistant here who is going to demonstrate for us. Alright, as you can see, we actually got a heavy bleed here now that she shot me in the leg. When you have a heavy bleed, all of your body parts are going to continuously take 1 point of health until you repair that bleed. This bleed is going to be pretty substantial and it's going to be pretty quick. When you have a heavy bleed, the only way to remove it is by using one of your tourniquets. The 3 options we have here is an Esmarch, a cat, and a hemostat. There's really no difference between the 3 of these other than the time of use and how many uses you have. Something to keep in mind is some of these med kits up here do have the ability to remove a bleed, both heavy and light, but it will take a certain amount from the total health pool of the item. So in this case, for the AFAC here, if I were to use it on a heavy bleed, it would take 170 of the 400 points to repair that bleed. So let's go ahead and use the hemostat here, go ahead and get that bleed repaired. Now that the bleed is gone, all of the body parts have stopped taking damage. You will have a fresh wound for a little while typically when you repair a bleed. This can open back up with movement and moving through terrain and bushes. It'll typically just cause a light bleed if it does open back up, and you just have to use a bandage to repair that. Alright, so now that we have a light bleed is very similar to the heavy bleed, where it will take 1 health from all of your limbs. The biggest difference with the light bleed is it's not going to take 1 health from every limb as fast as the heavy bleed does. Instead of using a tourniquet to take care of a light bleed, you can use a bandage. Some of the health kits will also have the ability to remove a light bleed for a portion of the total health pool, but in this case we're going to go ahead and use one of these 2 bandages. There's no difference between the 2 other than that the aseptic bandage is 1 use and the army bandage is 2 uses. So let's go ahead and use the army bandage and take care of that. Now that we've taken care of a heavy bleed as well as a light bleed, now we've managed to actually get a fracture. Fractures are going to keep you from being able to run, and they're also going to cause a pain effect. The best way to take care of a fracture is going to be using a aluminum splint or a splint. Each one of these items is going to have a use time. In the case of the aluminum splint, it's 3 seconds. In case of an immobilizing splint, it's 5. The aluminum splint also has 5 uses. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Once you take care of a splint, it's going to allow you to be able to move at full speed again. We won't be able to currently because we do have a blacked limb, but then the pain effect should subside shortly after that. Next in the order of healing is actually going to be topping off your thorax and your head. If your thorax or your head reaches 0 while you're in game, your character will die. Now that our head and our thorax are topped off, we can take care of any other surgeries we need to do. So any black limbs, whether it be your stomach, your arms, or your legs, when you have to do surgery, you're either going to be able to use a CMS kit or a Serve 12. Serve 12s will actually take care of fractures as well if you do not have a splint on you, but they do have a longer use time over the CMS kit, which is 16. They do have more uses, but something to keep note of is if I use a Serve 12 to repair a limb, the total health pool is going to be higher than if I were to use a CMS. So as you can see, I repaired the limb, it's 1 out of 38. If I use the CMS, it's possible that this number would actually be lower than 38. The last thing is going to be topping off every single body part that's not full health. So now that we've already done everything else in this order of healing, we're just going to make sure that our body has the maximum amount of health we can have left over. Now that the order of healing is out of the way, we're going to be covering Care Under Fire. Care Under Fire is the process we're going to follow when there is a hostile nearby or we are actively engaging a threat. The first concept we're going to talk about is what everybody refers to as pre-medding. Pre-medding is the act of taking painkillers in preparation of an engagement. This typically means you're going into a hot area, and the purpose of doing this is so if you do engage a player, a scav boss, scav, whatever it may be, if your legs get blacked or fractured, your character is still able to run. This is very important because if you are in a fight and you have not pre-medded and one or both of your legs gets blacked, your character is pretty much a sitting duck. So in the case that you aren't a person that likes to pre-med, we're going to go to be covering 4 stims. Those 4 stims currently is going to be morphine, adrenaline, propofol, and ETG, 3 of which actually will give you a passive healing. And the benefit of using stims, especially if you get caught off guard, is their use time. Every stim should have a use time of 2 seconds, and this allows you to be able to quickly react in case everything hits the fan and you weren't prepared. The great thing about using a stim, especially one of the 3 that do give you a passive healing, if you've been badly hurt and a bleed could potentially kill you before you have a chance to heal, depending on the stim you use, there's a strong possibility that you will survive the engagement. On the other end of that as well, a healing stim, especially the ETG, allows you to be prepared in case that threat decides to push you and you're not stuck in an animation trying to heal and you don't have your gun ready. If you are in combat and you're badly injured, the next 2 things you're going to focus on is taking care of bleeds, trying to repair your chest and your head. We're not going to focus on the order of healing that we talked about at the beginning of this video until you've either eliminated the threat or you've pulled off of the fight entirely. If you do need to heal while you're still in an engagement, try to find a safe area, typically behind a door or somewhere that has a lot of concealment and cover, and try to deter your attacker from coming after you by using things such as smoke, using grenades, flash, or even just desk pops, if you will, just to try to keep them from deciding to push you while you are healing. Once all said and done, and you're no longer having to perform Care Under Fire, we're going to follow the order of healing that we went over just before this section. Now that y'all are combat medics and field surgeons, let me know in the comments down below how many times you've had to repair a black limb in a single raid. If you're having trouble engaging scavs, consider clicking on the video up above. That's going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're one of those returning viewers that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And without further ado, I'll see you in the next one.